All right, in this video, I want to share my perspective on the Neuralink, which, if you don't know, is a proposal by Elon Musk, which is saying that we need to improve the input and output mechanism to our computers so that we can keep up to speed with artificial intelligence. Okay, so what does that even mean? Okay, well, currently, let's say that you have an idea and you want to share it with our kind of collective intelligence called the internet. Then you would take the idea, you'd have to whittle it down into text, and then you'd type it into the computer, and you'd either post it to a web page, or maybe you'd send it to somebody directly, okay, or whatever. And that is extremely low resolution communication. Okay, the other person gets the text, and they're like, what mood is this person in? They totally misread it, they can't get the vocal cues. It's a very bad form of communication. Okay, if you send a picture, okay, there's a picture's worth 1,000 words, so you get a lot more input. It's a higher resolution form of communication. Okay, you send a video, it's even higher resolution form of communication. A 3D video in VR, even higher resolution. Okay, but what he is proposing is that if we have these little implants that are like smaller than that size of a hair that go into different parts of our brain, okay, which sounds just totally spooky. And at first I'm like, this is the worst idea ever. I still am on the fence about it. I don't think I would ever do it at the current state of knowledge that I am at now. I'll let other people do that first. But it is a curious idea, and so I want to explain it, okay? And so what he thinks is that if we have these little implants in our brain, then we'll have a super high resolution input and output mechanism to the computer. And so instead of communicating where you have an idea and you whittle it down into text and then you send it, you could basically send your mental state or your ideas to somebody else, okay? And they could feel that, or they could receive it, or you could just store it in memory in the same way you store text or pictures or whatever in memory. So what he's saying is that if artificial intelligence gets so good and so, like let's say it can read books and it can read every single book that has ever been written ever by humans, then it can become so much smarter than any human can become, because humans cannot read every single book. Okay, and so if we want to keep up with the intelligence of artificial intelligence, then we have to somehow merge with it so that we could learn from it faster. And that sort of thing. Okay, well, my perspective on this is that I don't really fear that, okay, although I could be wrong. But the way that I see it is that we already have that super intelligence thing in the sky, right? And if you read Napoleon Hill's books, the term he gives it is infinite intelligence, right? So there's this quote in yoga where it's like, human beings are the eyes and the ears of the universe, right? So the way that I see this is, imagine that you have a tree, and the tree has branches and then it has leaves. Okay, well, each human could be thought of as a leaf on that branch, okay? And all animals and all life forms and everything, okay? And as we experience our life, information is being fed to that infinite intelligence, and it gets smarter and smarter and smarter based upon our life experience. And then through our emotions, we are then guided, through our conscience, we are then guided to say, is this the right path to take or whatever, okay? And so that broader wisdom then guides each of us individually to the best path, okay? And so by creating these neural network, or these brain interfaces, and then creating these like collective networks of intelligence, we're basically just kind of mirroring what already exists. Okay, but the thing is that we're never ever going to surpass that infinite intelligence, okay, because it's been evolving for millennia. It's responsible for our entire existence. And so the idea that we're going to somehow surpass that, to me, is just crazy. Okay, so, but what I do think is that these networks are going to become increasingly important in our economy, okay? Because let's say that let's just take, for example, people that are working without cell phones or without iPads or tablets or computers or whatever. So you have one organization that does everything by hand, okay? They are far less productive because it takes a long time for somebody to receive this insight, so to speak, from infinite intelligence and then communicate it to everybody. Okay, there's not a very good communication network in that organization, so they are less productive. Versus a company that is all digitally interconnected, somebody has the insight, they're able to express that idea in words or video or whatever, and get it out to the rest of the network. That company is going to be far more efficient than the one that has to do everything via paper. Okay, so with these brain interfaces, what I think will happen is that you will just it'll be like, this team of people that all has these brain interfaces will just be far more on the same page. Okay, but all of that is going to be limited by the intelligence that's fed into the network. So, for example, if you were to, train an artificial intelligence to learn from Twitter, which I'll link a video below where they did this, I think it was Microsoft had this AI that was like trying to learn about life via a Twitter account, okay, and it turned out to just be the most racist and just terrible thing ever, because it was just feeding all of that garbage basically, and the toxicity that you see on Twitter, where it was just learning from that and it's developing its worldview based upon that toxicity. Okay, and so then it wasn't a good pure source of information. Okay, and in a similar way, if you have everybody hooked up to these brain interfaces, but all the information that's being fed to it is just kind of, garbage from people that are in bad emotional states and this kind of stuff, then what you're going to be left with is a tool that's not very useful. Okay, and so the brain interface is only as valuable as the smartest person in the network. Okay, and so, if you look at the evolution of this infinite intelligence, as Napoleon Hill calls it, all of the books and all of this stuff is all old news. Okay, a lot of it has relevance and it's good to express ideas and there's a lot of good information in there, but all of that stuff is old news, and what's now is what's up to date. Okay, and the insights that you gain by yourself and by that kind of stuff, that and your own life experience, that is what's relevant, more so than all these books that were written hundreds of years ago. Okay, those are all just the shared collective consciousness back then. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily make you smarter or more capable of living in today's world if you are up to speed with the last person's, worldview 100 years ago. Okay, and so the way that I see it is that I don't worry about artificial intelligence taking over the world, because it's limited to our input, okay, and all of our text and all of our books. That's from us that we fed into it. What I do think it will be is a really good, awesome, smart resource where it could read all this book, and it's like a really awesome librarian where you could go to the library and say, hey, I'm interested in this topic. Can you tell me more information about it? And it could feed that stuff back to you. Okay, but the artificial intelligence is always limited to past knowledge. It's never up to speed with what the new information is. And it's dependent upon us for that new and improved information. Okay, so it's never going to surpass us, but it will become really intelligent at understanding us and expressing and communicating ideas that we receive to other people very quickly. Okay, so I think that the brain interfaces are cool. I think that I'm not going to use them until they're really well developed, because that's just kind of freaky to have stuff implanted in your brain. I also think that the applications that exist on it, depending upon their business model, they could if you have, like, for example, the thing, it wants to go, he wants to have it so it's like it goes into your motor cortex. Okay, and so then you could, like, let's say you're playing a video game or something, and you could be in your headset and you could think about moving your arm, and then your arm would move within the video game because you're thinking about it in your brain. Now, I don't see how you could think about moving your arm without moving your arm and then do it in the game. I think what'll happen is your brain will kind of develop neurons to interface with that little implant, and then you'll be able to kind of have this like new layer where you're able to then move an arm in the video game. Okay, it'll be like having a third arm or whatever. Okay, but if you have an input and output mechanism to your motor cortex, if somebody pokes you in that, or sends an impulse to that part, then you would move an arm. Okay, and so if you have these networks that are not designed with proper encryption and privacy and settings to turn it off and all this kind of stuff, and you have all these people hooked up to it, then in essence you can like have this fleet of slaves that can be controlled. Okay, like even more so, if somebody gets hacked with their computer, it's like, oh, it's just my computer, just throw it away, and you could still survive. But if you're hooked into this thing and then you get hacked and it has access to all your motor cortex and stuff, okay, that could be very dangerous. And so that's kind of my thoughts on it. Sorry if I rambled a bit, but if you have any questions below, go ahead and post them or comments, and that's that. Thank you for watching.